is so deeply divided and how to heal it constitutionally. We are deeply divided, and there's a reason for it. In fact, it was deliberately done so. And it's important for us to realize that, to be able to put a framework together for us to understand what is happening so that we can confront it. And the first subject I'm going to be talking about in this first hour is the war of worldviews that has caused this deep division. And then the attack on property rights and why it's important for these people to attack private property rights. Smart growth fraud. Here in Coeur d'Alene, Spokane, and other places in many other cities around the country are implementing smart growth, and people are fleeing those cities. Agenda 21, because most of what we're seeing here happening in our local communities has its origins in Agenda 21. How did it get here? Who did it? How did it happen? What you see is that Rousseau's special interests have basically overcome or are overcoming the people's law and establishing the Rousseau feudal ruler law of government. And it's only going to get worse unless we stop it. One of the things that we have to be focused on in this last couple months before the 2010, and as a consequence, liberals will read it. And I have gotten many comments back from them thanking me for writing this book because they never understood what they were doing. It literally changed their minds. How can they understand when they're only getting one half of the story? When their education has been perverted, as it is being in our public school systems today, tragically. But in this book, Rossiter says that under careful scrutiny, progressive liberalism's distortions of the normal ability to reason of the third world nations. This is evil. It is raw evil. And yet, those who work for the Adirondack Park Agency think they're doing society a great service by stopping environmental destruction. There's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in a moment. But it is very serious because it was successful. They fought it. They fought it in the state legislature. They had protests and so forth. But with the New York Times and the citizens of New York who wanted this as their playground, they were never successful in getting the law changed. And it's why we have our unalienable rights as citizens to prevent exactly this thing from happening, and yet it's happened. And it's happening in California, it's happening in Oregon, it's happening all across this country. Fortunately, here in Idaho, it's not as bad, but it is happening here too. Now, in 1976, in Habitat 1, the United Nations established a principle that they've held to since that time, that property must be controlled by the state. Every treaty, every agreement that the United States signs with the United Nations is based on the premise that the state or the nation controls private property rights. Just remember that. Portland was the very first city to actually establish urban growth boundaries. And what happens when that happens is that if an agricultural area that is in one of these boundaries is converted into developable land, all of a sudden what you find is this. The land on the left, with just the drawing of a line, was converted into hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars of valuation, and the land on the right was in the tens of thousands of dollars of valuation. The landowner on the left got rich, became a multimillionaire. The farmer on the right is still eking out a living and has no hope for ever being able to convert his asset into something for his retirement or for their kids' college education. And if you happen to know in advance where this line is going to be drawn, you can profit handsomely. And so it opens the door up to vast corruption. Does smart growth accomplish these goals? In a word, not. it doesn't accomplish anything. Every study has shown that it dramatically increases congestion. Why? Because you're putting more people in a smaller area. It increases air pollution for the same reason. It destroys the American dream of owning a home. It dramatically increases the cost of living and transfers property rights to the government. Now, we saw in the Adirondack situation how the rights were transferred of rural owners to the government. This is how the property rights of urbanites are going to be transferred to the government. It artificially benefits some while denying others, and because of that, throws open the door to corruption. There is nothing smart about smart growth. It's really bad news. And it costs you dearly. The Harvard Institute of Economic Research has found in cities like Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Houston, these are not brought it into the United States. And in 1999, Towards a Sustainable America was published. And this covers the area of climate change, environmental management, and sustainable communities, and several more. We're talking right now about sustainable communities, i.e. smart growth. Policy recommendation number 7 out of sustainable communities. This is a U.S. document. Action 1, the federal government should redirect federal policies that encourage low-density sprawl. In other words, any policy that encourages sprawl